Today we look at the interrogative pronoun, which is tis, and the indefinite pronoun, which is tis. And you go, oh no, we have the same pronoun. Well, we'll see that they're not exactly the same, and in fact, when we're reading along, there will be a nice easy way to distinguish between the interrogative pronoun and the indefinite pronoun. But we'll look at the forms in just a minute. Right now I want to make sure you understand the difference between these two pronouns in their function. We already saw in the last video, the interrogative pronoun asks a question. So I might say, whose wedding was that? Or I might look at this and say, who likes to barbecue? Or I might say, what is cuter than a litter of puppies? You see, in each case, I'm asking a question and I'm using an interrogative pronoun. Who, which, what. The indefinite pronoun points to an indefinite subject. Okay, it doesn't so much ask a question, it points to some indefinite subject. So I might say, someone was married back in 1989. You can tell it was 1989 by the hairdos, right? But someone. Who? Someone. You see, it's indefinite. Or I might look at this barbecuing picture and say, I'm barbecuing something. Something. Do you see? What? Something. It's indefinite. Or maybe I would look at our litter of puppies and say, would anyone like a puppy? You hear anyone there? It's undefined. So someone, something, anyone, anything. It's these undefined subjects that are replaced by these indefinite pronouns. So get these clear in your head. The interrogative pronoun asks a question. There will always be a question mark. Who is getting this, right? But the indefinite pronoun will leave it vague. Someone isn't. So that's the difference between the interrogative and the indefinite pronoun. Now, as is the case with all pronouns, they have to be able to stand in for masculine and feminine and neuter subjects. Again, in English, we're getting used to the idea that English doesn't usually define the gender, but Greek always does, because remember, every Greek substantive will have case number and gender, right? So we need masculine, feminine, and neuter forms for these interrogative pronouns and these indefinite pronouns. Now, we're used to this idea that they follow the 2-1-2 pattern. So in the masculine, they follow second declension, and in the feminine, they follow first declension, and in the neuter, they follow second declension again. But the interrogative and indefinite pronoun follow the 3-3 pattern. Do you remember what that means? It means that in the masculine and the feminine and the neuter in all of the genders, it will be third declension. In other words, it will look exactly like the yellow portion of your noun endings chart. Here it is in all its glory. And you can see this yellow chart here is the third declension endings. And hopefully you can see how the masculine feminine column here is applied to the masculine feminine forms of these two pronouns. And if you take these endings and put them on these pronouns, it's just a perfect fit, right? So tis, tenos, tinny, tena, tenes, tenon, tissy, tenos. And you can see what the English translations are doing. And as usual, we're used to this. The English forms don't change much. A little bit, but not much. Just take a look at that. Notice in the neuter then, you take the neuter third declension endings and tack them on to the stem here, and it becomes te, tenos, tinny, te, tena, tenon, tissy, tena. Notice if it were neuter, we would say which, not who. The who would have to be masculine or feminine. So we get a little bit of a clue from the gender in the Greek. Now notice with the indefinite, the forms are identical except for the accent. As we've seen, accent on the first syllable always means interrogative. No accent on the first syllable, indefinite. So let's pronounce these correctly. Tis, okay, but then not over here we said tenos. Here we would say tenos, teni, tena, tenes, tenon, tissi, tenos.
So hear the difference? Tenos, teni, tena instead of tenos, teni, tena. Accent on the front, interrogative, okay? And then the neuter forms, just to say them, te, tenos, teni, te. Tena, tenon, tesi, tena. So you can understand how this gets a little bit confusing when you compare the relative, interrogative, and indefinite forms of pronouns between Greek and English. We saw that in English, the relative and interrogative pronouns use the same words, right? Well, the interrogative will have a question mark because it's interrogating, it's asking a question. The indefinite form in English will be quite different. Someone, something, anyone, anything. But in Greek, we saw that the relative pronoun is quite different from the interrogative pronoun. The relative pronoun is some form of has, he, ha. Always a rough breathing mark and an accent, right? The interrogative pronoun in Greek will be some form of tis with the accent always over the first syllable. And then the indefinite pronoun looks a lot like the interrogative except no accent on the first syllable. So, just to look at it in Greek here, if I said the man who is teaching us Greek, who is teaching us Greek would be a relative pronoun using, of course, the relative clause there to define the man who is teaching us Greek. If I were to ask a question in Greek, I would have some form of tis with the accent on the first syllable. Again, the question, who is teaching us Greek? If I wanted to make it indefinite, it would be a form of tis with no accent. Is anyone teaching us Greek? Taking a look at the interrogative and indefinite pronouns in John 1, you'll see first off that they are not nearly as common as our first and second person pronouns and relative pronouns, but they are there and they're important to see. So here's the first one, nice and easy. Su, tis, e. You, who are you? It's actually emphatic in Greek. Who are you? They're asking John this. It almost is like, who do you think you are? You're out here in the wilderness pretending to be a prophet or whatever. But look at this tis here. Tis, nominative, singular, masculine. Who are you? John says, ego uk eimi ha Christos. I am not the Christ. And so they ask him, these Jewish officials who are sent out to the wilderness to figure out what John is doing, they ask him, teun. Notice the accent mark on the first syllable. We know this is a question. What then? And it's not who then, because that would be masculine. But this is neuter. So in other words, what are you? Not who are you, but what are you? Then down here in verse 22, look at it again. Who are you? Not what are you this time, but who, because it's nominative, singular, masculine. See the form here. Who are you? And what do you say for yourself? What do you have to say for yourself? But here the question is not who, but what. Notice neuter. Who are you? Tis e, and te leges peri seautu. What do you say about yourself? Who, what? But again, interrogative pronouns, accent on the first syllable. More questions in verse 25. Why, therefore, are you baptizing if you're not the Christ? Again, the accent, the interrogative pronoun. Another question down in verse 38. The disciples are following Jesus and he turns and says, what do you seek? Not whom do you seek here, but what? What do you seek? So notice the te. What do you seek? Then all the way down in verse 46, we finally get our first indefinite pronoun. Notice no accent. So the question is, and this is Nathaniel asking, he's saying, ek Nazaret dunatai te agathon enai. Can anything good come from Nazareth? But notice te, no accent mark, so something. Here not anyone, because it would be masculine, feminine if it were a person. So can anything good come from Nazareth? Since we didn't come across very many indefinite pronouns in John 1, let's just look at a couple of more. Here's one right here, where Jesus says, if anyone wants to come after me. Notice tis, anyone, no accent. It's indefinite. The translation here really should be anyone. Or here's another one where Jesus says, watch out lest someone, someone, planese humas, lead you astray, like planet, right? The wandering celestial beings, So anyway, watch out lest someone, notice tis here, no accent, so someone, indefinite. Here's a neuter example. If on anything, te, you may ask me, in to anamati mu, in my name, right? In to anamati mu, I will do it. Poieso. So, but here's the point. If anything, not anyone, because this is neuter, it's indefinite because there's no accent.
So there you have it, the interrogative pronoun and the indefinite pronoun. Both of them are like tis and te, right? But if there is an accent on the first syllable, it is a what? An interrogative pronoun. Again, think of that accent as sort of like a question mark. It asks a question. Who, what, why? If there is no accent on the first syllable, then it's an indefinite pronoun. Someone, something, anyone. And again, I think of the lack of an accent as being sort of undefined. It's indefinite. So, who is getting this? Anyone? Anyone? Mortimer looks like he's about to kill me. Anyway, I hope you get it. Interrogative, indefinite pronouns. See you guys.